Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, on Friday, the 27th of September, 2024. I'm your host, and we're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Peterborough, and Derby, through our partner stations across the nation. Especially a big shout out to those listening to us through Salam Radio and Link FM this evening. Welcome to all of you. What a wonderful Friday evening it is. At least in Luton, it's calmed down. But I don't know about you. It's been quite a nerve-wracking week, I've got to say, with all the floodings that we've seen, especially across our part of the world. And I'm talking about Luton and central England. I think places in London had it quite bad earlier on this week. But I was quite nervous sending my kids to school this week, especially in light of all the extra rain that we've been seeing. And dare I say, maybe even unexpectedly, though we are going into the autumn months, of course, and into winter. Well, you know what? Wherever you're tuning in from, whether you're sitting comfortably at home anyway, or catching us on the move, thank you for joining us. We're live on all platforms tonight, so don't forget to get involved in the discussion on 01582 481822. And we've got some important topics lined up tonight that actually impact us all, including the topic of flooding. And I'd love to know how your experience has gone this past week or two and what you've done to prepare. Have you actually bought some sandbags and decided to protect your property, especially in Luton with the River Lee? I'm signed up to that government service that lets you get flood alerts, and I actually got some alerts about the flooding around the River Lee, which got me a little bit worried. I saw Wardown Park. Did anyone see Wardown Park? In fact, let me go to my co-presenter tonight. I don't think I've ever co-presented this show with this great man, and some may say I'm being modest here, but he is on the program, and it's brother Tariq. Salam alaikum, Tariq.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
I am amazing, but to have your voice on this program, I feel honored and blessed, man.
You should be.
Yeah.
I think it's a privilege, and I think you're very lucky to have me here. So, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, you've actually lowered yourself to appear on Friday Night Live.
I have indeed. The listeners are normally used to a 8 o'clock in the morning start, but
yeah,
alhamdulillah.
Everyone's into the radio thinking, hang on, this guy, this is Brother T from the morning. What's going on? I'm hearing him on Friday evening. But Tariq, let me ask you, what do you prefer me to call you, Brother T or?
You can call me Susan if you like, whatever you want.
Susan, okay, we won't go that far. But let me ask you, what was your experience of the flooding this past week?
I was quite fortunate in the sense that obviously all the listeners will know, due to my injured knee, I'm not able to drive at the moment. So alhamdulillah, I wasn't stuck out there like a lot of the videos and the pictures you saw.
Yeah.
But what did frustrate me was
stuck inside.
I was stuck inside. So the little bit of exercise that I have to be able to walk around in the garden, I wasn't able to do. So it was frustrating. But luckily, it wasn't actually as bad as I'm sure some of our listeners may have had out there.
Yeah, I've got to say, you've got a good voice for radio as well.
I have, and some people say I've got a face for radio as well, so you can add that if you want.
I was trying to be nice, but hey, fair enough. Okay, a bit of self-deprecation is okay on this program. But you know what, listeners, tonight's show is all about the issues that are on everyone's minds right now, from the devastating floods we've seen recently, not just across the UK, but also across Europe, to a think tank that's aiming to shape our future, to the ever relevant topic of fitness and well-being. Of course, we're going to be closing with an in-depth look at the weather in the UK and what that means for all of us. Don't forget, you can call in on tonight's program at any point, 01582 481 822. So let's go ahead and get started on our first topic. Well, as I mentioned, floods have been wreaking havoc across the UK and Europe, with climate change accelerating, unless you speak to Donald Trump, that is, of course. He won't agree with that. But generally, if you have half a head on your shoulders, with climate change accelerating, many are asking whether these disasters are becoming our new normal. Well, joining me tonight to discuss this crucial issue, we have Zunaira Malik, an environmental educator who's been working on community-based climate change projects for years. Zunaira, welcome to the program. Can you hear us?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Ground control to Major Zunaira. We can hear you very loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to come to you in a second. Also joined in the studio by two wonderful guests on the program tonight. Let me go ahead and welcome Louise Brown, a Luton-born environmental activist who has been working tirelessly to promote local climate resilience. Welcome, Louise. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And also, finally, we have Councillor Javed Hussain, who holds the portfolio for climate action in Luton, and he's been involved in various flood prevention initiatives. Councillor Javed, it's great to have you on as well.
Thank you very much.
And if I can ask you both in the studio to come close to the microphones as possible so we can get your wonderful voices on the airwaves. So, Councillor Javed, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. And I'm the head of portfolio for highways.
Oh, that's right.
And flooding and conservation sits in my remit.
Amazing. So lots of responsibility there. So look forward to hearing about your thoughts. Zanera, let me go to you first of all online. As someone with hands-on experience in environmental education, what changes have you observed in the climate patterns in Europe over the last decade? I'm curious to know that, and also maybe around the UK as well.
So I mean, a lot, and a lot of it is that, we see in the news things that are happening all over the world, which in my head, I naturally just automatically connect to climate change and the way our world is rapidly changing at the moment. In the UK specifically, our sort of biggest climate impact is going to be floods. Parts of the world we might see droughts and we might see forest fires becoming more intense. I was just in Canada for the summer. And they've had insane forest fires. And this is, a natural thing that does tend to happen. However, it's the intensity and the how quick and often it's happening now, which is what is linked to climate change. And I think in the UK, being an island, our biggest issue that we're facing, our biggest extreme weather is the storms. I don't know if you saw, but it was called a mini tornado in Luton the other day.
I did. That was scary, and I saw a video as well. Those WhatsApp groups that you get videos sent on, especially local kind of safety groups. I was shocked to see some people really worrying about what's going on, especially with the video doorbells now, right? You get a lot of video about these events. Yeah, it was quite scary. Stay there, Zanera. I'm going to come back to you in a second because I want to know what role we can play as individuals and communities in dealing with all of this, but I'll come back to you in a second. But let me go to Louise Brown. So Louise, you've been involved in climate activism at the local level for years. How have the recent floods impacted communities in Luton from your perspective? And what do you reckon is being done to mitigate future risks? We've got a councillor right next to you, so we can probably get some real-time responses as well. But would love to know your take. I was quite surprised to see the flooding. Maybe I shouldn't be, because there's a whole river going through Wardown Park, right? Central Luton, the River Lee. What's your take, and what's your reaction to what's happened in Luton, at least?
Well, I mean, I'm in those WhatsApp groups as well.
Yeah.
So they were flooded, no pun intended, with videos and people talking about what was happening on their doorstep.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with climate change is there's almost been 3 stages of it. There was the sort of acceptance, like you said, anyone with half a sensible head on their shoulders believes in climate change. They believe in the climate science, and they know that we have to do something about it. So first of all, there was the acceptance. And then we went into the stage where it's like, well, what can we do? So we stopped plastic straws. We switched to paper straws. We've got our water bottles. I've got mine here.
I've got to confess something. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, yeah.
I've still got some plastic straws. I bought a whole load.
And that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
This is the point I'm making.
Those giant ones.
We've all done our bit.
Yeah.
But now the next bit that we're moving into, the most important bit, is what are they doing? And by they, I mean big businesses, I mean governments, and respect to my colleague next to me, councils. I think, Luton Council do a lot. And I've got some friends on the council, and we're always having these conversations. But really, it's less about the paper straws and it's more about what is government doing. So I went for a walk the other day, and I live close to Wardown Park, and I was amazed by how much the banks had burst.
Yeah.
And there's a small hut in Wardown Park. We all know it. I've been in Luton my whole life. My ice cream and chip man.
Yes, exactly.
The best chips in Luton.
Yeah.
And I assume that this is an independent, small family-run business, and they were bailing their brilliant ice cream hut out.
You saw them?
I saw them doing it, and I asked them if they needed any help, but they had the fire. They had the experts. They don't need me. But I was heartbroken for them, because I assume that is a small business, and how are they going to bounce back? So these aren't the big companies. It's not a Starbucks hut in Wardown Park. It's these are good local people, and I was just amazed by you know, the damage that floods can do. And you know, we just want to know what is the help available to them? And the question we need to ask is the UK prepared for climate change?
It's a good question. Stay there on that one. I'm going to come back to you in a second, and we can draw a bit more on that. But Councillor Javeed, as someone at the forefront of local government, what specific flood prevention measures are being taken in Luton? We just heard Louise mention that, you know, there is some good work being done by the council. What exactly is being done by the council, and how effective have they been so far, those measures?
Thank you. So we have a rolling program for clearing our road gullies. That's a given. We have a run to ensure that the surface water can flow off. We're no longer giving permission for dropped curves, crossovers where we will lose green space. So any grass verges or not, we won't. I know it upsets our residents. We're obviously looking at reviewing is.
When you say drop curb, let me clarify that. So, you know, in front of a house, if you're lucky enough to have a drive, you can actually drop the curb and let your car in and out nicely. You're not doing that anymore?
Not if there's a verge. We won't go over a verge.
Oh, I see.
So if it's no verge, you'll still
Can I ask you a dumb question? What does that mean, a verge?
Verge is, you know, between the pavement and your house, you have a green strip of grass.
Oh, yeah.
If it means we're going to lose that green strip, which acts as natural drainage, we're not likely to give you permission.
So if you have like a concrete or granite outside on the pavement, that's okay. You might get permission. But if there's a bit of soil with grass, because that adds to the soaking effect of the rainwater, you're not going to probably do that.
Natural drainage.
Got it, right.
So I know that irks people, because why have they got it and why haven't? It seems unfair. To this, it's more complex because there's a number of issues here. Before, traditionally, people had gardens. Now nobody has gardens because in Luton we have about 68,000 cars. So over there, people are looking to park on corners. You see the frustration of corners. People parked on double yellow lines.
Yeah.
Now, as a net result of losing that natural drainage, and when people are putting in, because we don't control it, when people are putting in going concrete, what they're not putting also is adequate drainage in there to their property, and then they're finding they're getting damp as well.
Yeah.
So there's a number of factors. So as a council, the two areas that we know that we were in Luton that were prone. So let's take last week was a freak thunderstorm. It's unheard of.
But what we're hearing that these are going to become more often, aren't they? These are going to become much more often.
Because climate change is real. Because people have denied climate change. Climate change is here to stay. Because you can see that we have late Indian summers here. You look at the last, September, October. Look outside. It looks how nice the weather is today from what it was this morning.
It's just changing literally over the last week or two. 1 minute it's raining, 1 minute it's dry, the next minute it's hailing, the next minute it's dry. It's literally freak weather. Yeah.
And April showers are not April showers anymore. They probably May.
Councillor, hold on there, because I want to go back to my guest, but we're gonna come back to all of you in a second. But Zanera, thanks for holding on the line there as well. We appreciate your time tonight on Friday Night Live. Zanera, what role do you think? We just heard a local activist here in Luton and also a councillor talking about, you know, their perspectives on what's been happening. But what role do you think individuals and communities can play in addressing the immediate threats posed by climate change, especially in flood-prone areas? And maybe even councils. What do you think councils are doing a good enough job and local governments are doing a good enough job?
I think we could be doing better, to be honest. To be honest, I don't think there's one role to play in this. I think we're talking about a global, you know, it's on a global scale. Everyone has to do what they can and not the same thing. Like,
if everyone's busy waiting for each other, nothing's going to get done. Right?
Or that we have this idea that, you know, you have to be a specific person to do something about it, and you don't. You just need to, you know, if you're a lawyer, you have a role in what you do day to day to make sure that, you know, what you're doing day to day isn't actually increasing the impact. You know, you're doing your bit in whatever skills that you have. I don't think there's like one role. Like, for example, like my preferred role is education and working with communities. And I studied ecological restoration because I personally believe we need to restore the systems that are broken at the moment, and they are broken. And they're getting worse,
right? Yeah, I mean, you did ecological restoration, correct me if I'm wrong, at the Eden Project, which is a massive kind of environmental experiment / amazing kind of example of what can be done if things are done properly.
I mean, it is used for educational purposes, but that is just, you know, it's like a visitor center to kind of learn more about nature and what goes on in our world, you know. But but what I learned was more around the systems that are at play. For example, these floods and where's the rain coming from? It's coming because sea levels are rising, because ice caps are melting at a faster rate than they have before. Like, this is all connected. What goes on in, for example, the Arctic is affecting us here in the UK. Like, nothing can be really separated. And I think the more we realize that we are talking about global systems, we start, we then need to start thinking bigger, doing whatever we can locally, but then thinking bigger of how we really kind of get out of this mess. And I think everyone needs to do their bit. And there's not one way. Like, I wish I could say this is the way, but I think green technology. I think it needs to be in government and local councils. I think we need proper climate change action plan in the council. Like, and it's not just tokenistic plans. It's things that we're actually doing, and also not just about the future. More about what I mean is not just around, how do we adapt, but also how we're mitigating further damage. We're still increasing levels of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So even if we stopped tomorrow, the world will still get warmer and things will still become a bit more extreme before it starts slowing down.
You're right. But one of the challenges, though, and this is what some governments say, is that, well, if we go ahead and start mitigating and proactively planning ahead as well, it's not going to make a blinding bit of difference if countries like China and Russia and other massive kind of contributors to carbon emissions around the world don't actually change their way of working. And they're like, China, and I'm sure you know this, China's like, what, listen up. We've been in the dark ages for decades while you guys were growing. Now it's our turn to grow and make a mess. And you can't tell us what to do.
Yeah. And that is something that we hear. Like, I hear it a lot in certain spaces where, like, what India's doing, what they want, and China's doing what they want.
Yeah.
Essentially, we've done, historically, we are huge contributors, UK and as part of like the bigger Western world, Europe, the USA, like, we are hugely responsible for what's going on at the moment, and we seem to forget that. For some reason, we seem to kind of take the high horse and say, well, now the issue, so do it differently. But it's not that easy. It's not that simple. And I think a lot of it, I mean, in climate conversations now, they speak more about reparations, for example. How do we support those countries financially to be able to make better choices? And not going into it in too much depth, but like, the UK does have a responsibility in doing that because of our past, because of our history. We have to learn from what we did wrong, and also support countries that are, essentially going to face like the brunt of it. So yeah, it's complicated, but also it doesn't need to be, I don't think, if we understand it and see it as a global, in the global context.
I agree. I think it doesn't have to be complicated if everyone kind of pulls their finger out, to use a proverbial term, and actually accept that the future is bleak unless we all proactively do something about it. If we want to save, dare I say, humanity. I mean, I was watching that film, Brother T, The Day After Tomorrow, which is all about climate catastrophe. It just happened to show up on my Amazon feed. And
I watched that the other day, actually. I watched that the other day and I was like, I remember this movie. But it kind of reminds you of that. Like, what we're seeing now is actually like a mini version of that. And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's scary when you watch that, and to see what's going to happen next. What's your reactions, Brother T, before I go to my next questions for our guests?
I can't comment on the movie. I haven't actually seen it. But to be honest, I think what's scary for me is when we have a lot of rain, we can't seem to cope. We have a lot of snow, we can't seem to cope. It just seems like any adverse weather that we have in the UK, we don't seem to cope. Whereas if you look at other countries who have, tons of snow, compared to what we have, and they cope quite well. So I think we do need to, find the weather is, there's an impact of the weather. But I think we do need to see the systems that we're going in place and how are we coping. And again, not to pick on Luton, because obviously it's worldwide. You've got the motorways. Sometimes you're driving the motorway and it's like, water standing on the motorway and you think, what the hell's going on here? Yeah. Why is there water here? And the cars are all over the place. So
yeah, but I blame the Conservatives. I mean, look, I don't want to go party political on this, but the Conservatives have been in power for 14 years plus, right? And they had a lot of time. They had all the signals. They had all the tremors, all the indications to suggest that this is coming. And even during their reign, we also had incidents with flooding and things along those lines, but they've been very slow to react. And unfortunately, the nutcases who are even standing for leadership now, people like Robert Jenricks, Kemi Badenoch, they're all climate skeptics. So we've got an opposition. We're going to have an opposition leader, a leader of the opposition, who's going to be a climate skeptic, which is scary as well. And we saw Rishi Sunak kind of take his foot off the throttle and the accelerator when it came to sustainability and things along those lines. So the UK was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Zanera, but the UK was leading the world when it came to this kind of stuff. And now we've kind of taken a back seat thanks to Rishi Sunak.
I mean, briefly. I wouldn't say we were leading the world.
I think we were on the top of the list, though.
Well, it depends who you talk to. I think something that the UK like doing, and I think generally like Europe likes to do, and is that say that look how good we're doing, and a lot of that is greenwashing. We're not doing that well, and we still. So let me just put into perspective. So there is this really interesting fact, or some research done to see, if everyone was using resource the same way the average person in the UK was, for example, we need around 2.5, 3 planets. If everyone lived like they did in the US, not everyone, but the average person like they did in the US in terms of how much resource we're consuming, we need 5 planets. But then there's India, who's still around a planet, and then there's I think it was Niger, which was like even less than 1 planet. So it's like
things are getting tight. Hey, there. I got to move on to my other guests quickly. Ask them some questions, but let me go to Louise. So Louise, thank you for joining us once again. If you can be maybe a couple of minutes on this next question, which is, what are some of the key challenges you face when it comes to raising awareness about climate resilience? Do you find people are generally bothered or interested, or do they just think it's fake news? And how do we better engage the public?
It's a really good question. I think that for the most part, people care about climate change and they're interested in climate change. But what you have, if you've got this small vocal minority who are essentially, and I'm going to say it, greedy, because Zanira's right. We've got a historical responsibility here in the UK. I think the China myth I think that's what it is. I think it's a myth, and I think it's, it's pointless to blame China, because then then it kind of puts them as the bad guys. We're the good guys. We're not the good guys. We have got a historic responsibility, and as one of the richest countries in the world, we've got a kind of economic responsibility to stand up. And let's not go into colonialism and imperialism and we've depleted all of these countries, and we have that's I really think we've got the responsibility to do this. So sorry, just remind me of the question. It was like, what can we do to educate? Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I think when it goes back to the people who are denying climate, or worse, delaying climate, and I say delay is worse because if you deny climate, you can almost not blame them for not doing anything about it. It's the people who believe in climate. You've got some reform MPs who say, oh, we think climate change is real, but it's too expensive. We possibly can't, do anything about it because, what about jobs? What about economics? And all they're interested in is making themselves richer and richer and richer. At what cost? At what cost? Absolutely. So what we need to do is educate people. And when people believe the lies, they might believe like, oh, well, what can the UK do? It's all about China. Or, we have to have that mine in Cumbria, that coal mine in Cumbria because of jobs. Or we have to. It's not true. These are lies, and they are just meant to keep the status quo and make people richer.
Lots of food for thought there, Louise. Thank you so much. No, really good. Councillor Javed, let me ask you my final question on this topic for now, at least. Do you believe the government's current flood response policies are adequate for the growing threat of climate change? And what changes would you like to see? Somebody who takes care of highways and flooding and etc.
So, do I think there's enough? No. We need to do absolutely more, but I'll switch back to your question a little bit. So I also have a second hat, which is very important, which is sustainable development. So I talk about saying water reharvesting, all our new buildings. Why can they not capture the water and reuse that water?
Absolutely.
Don't put it in the drain. Why can't people use water butts in their garden? Now, as a council, we could support them and give them a discounted water butts. When I say to people, well, at the moment, people are paying water meters. So why are you wasting your money? Why don't you use a resource? So use a water button to garden.
So could I contact the council and get a discounted water butt today or not yet?
I think I'll look on the website. We can do it. That's something we're looking at to do is have an agreement with somebody to buy volume.
I think that's fantastic. I would use that. I would use a water butt if I had the opportunity.
And on the sustainable development, because we seem to think highways, but it's not one lever. So sustainable development, I sit on that. I'm sitting in the local plan. And one of the key things I'm saying to people is any new buildings. So we're going to be doubling the size of Butterfield Business Park. And I went to the management. I said to him, hold on, you should be oh, they said it's going to have solar panels as an afterthought. I said, don't put it as an afterthought. It should be there first time, and you should market it as it's going to save you X amount of electricity over the years, because you are now reducing your reliance on fossil fuels. Okay. We should be using wind turbines as you, and I want to get political because it may come across, but as soon as Labour government got worst thing, they took the ban. How can you ban onshore wind turbines, which is a renewable energy? How can you do something like that?
That's because Mr. Rich over there is going to have his view disrupted. We can't have that, can we, Councillor?
Yeah. So there's a number of things, and we got to think about: do we really need to stop building over our carpeting, our gardens? Listen, there's a number of levers there.
We need to have all of you guys on the programme again, but we run out of time on this topic. But let me go ahead and thank you, Councillor Javid. Also thank Louise Brown and Zanera Malik for joining us on tonight's programme. Listeners, this is Friday Night Live. We're going to be talking about this topic in the future if we're still around. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. Friday Night Live.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Why do Tops Pizza deliver the top pizzas in Luton and Dunstable?
For a start, all the toppings are 100% halal and Tops use fresh dough every day. Then there's the cheese, the highest quality available. And when it comes to food preparation, cleanliness is taken as part of our faith. So that just leaves the taste, choice and great offers, including buy one, get one free on all medium, large and extra large pizzas. Tops Pizzas, Wellington Street, LU1 5AA. Order online, topspizza.com or via Just Eat. Download our app or call 01582 72 5000.
For expert legal advice and support, talk with Luton's leading solicitors, Hannah Solicitors. We specialise in conveyancing, wills and probate, family law, immigration and personal injury, legal matters that matter to you. Our experienced legal team are here to help you through every step of the way. Call 01582 329 069. That's 01582 329 069, or click on hannahsolicitors.co.uk. Hannah Solicitors, professional advice with a tailored approach.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Isa Toyamia. I'm from Islamic Help, and I just want to say every act of goodness is charity. So keep doing good, keep helping people, and be yourself. And stay tuned to Inspire 105.1 FM.
Are you thinking of starting a podcast or looking to give your podcast a new home? Why not hire Inspire FM's dedicated recording studio? With rates starting at just £25 per booking, our podcast studio is a fully functional, acoustically treated space for up to 4 people, and it's set up and ready to use as soon as you arrive. For more information or to inquire about booking, email us at info@inspirefm.org or send us a DM on our social media accounts at InspireFM Luton.
Biscott Pharmacy, your one-stop health and beauty pharmacy in Luton. Stockist of over 8,000 health and beauty products. At Biscott Pharmacy, we offer a range of services, including health advice and repeat prescriptions for collection and delivery to your home. We also offer a Hajj and Umrah vaccination. Come in and see us and ask about our Stop Smoking service. We're open 7 days a week till late, including bank holidays. Biscott Pharmacy, 157A Biscott Road, Luton. Call 457709.
Every day, millions of people face life-threatening challenges. War, disaster, hunger. The need for your support has never been greater. At Action for Humanity, we believe in the power of compassion. Around the globe, we provide life-saving aid and long-term support to communities in crisis. Already, you've empowered us to reach 15 million people since 2011. Visit actionforhumanity.org or call us on 0161 860 0163 today.
Do you feel at times that you just can't cope anymore? Do you find raising a child in today's society challenging? Join me in my parenting show where I aim to discuss these challenges of raising our children, ranging from nurturing sentiment to building the leaders of tomorrow. Every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. live with Sister Navid on Inspire FM or via our Inspire FM Facebook page. The Parenting Show at 7 p.m. every Tuesday evening on Inspire FM.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamualaikum. Welcome back to part 2 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 27th of September, 2024. I'm your host, beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, and Peterborough through our partner stations across the nation. Welcome to all of you, and of course, joining me in the hot seat as my co-host tonight. He's no longer on the hot seat today, but you will see him in the mornings, of course, on radio, especially in Luton, is Brother T. Assalamu alaikum, Brother T.
Islam, how are you?
Yeah, good. Listen, flooding, climate change, all this stuff. It's a serious business, isn't it? A serious topic.
It is indeed, and it just goes to show how the seasons are changing and everything's changing, and the weapons of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are there.
Yeah, man.
And Allah can do as He pleases. But I think the only concern I have, to be honest, and it's a shame we didn't have enough time to speak to Councillor Javed.
Yeah.
As a council, to be honest, you're fine that there's a lot of funding restrictions, but you've got money. And to be honest, it's a shame to see that you're having to see floods in roads. I don't know when the last time, I know you used to travel to Pakistan quite a lot. To be honest, I don't really remember seeing huge floods in main roads. I don't know if you ever did.
That's because they had those open gutters, man.
But how do they control it? How come their guttering system is so good? You don't see roads flooded there.
Yeah, but listen, man. And no offense to anyone who's from Lahore, but last time I went to Lahore, just approaching it a few miles out, it stunk. So they've got other problems in Pakistan, including climate change. I mean, no offense. I mean, I'm going to get lots of people, Lahoris, now calling me up, having a go at me. Feel free to do that. 01582 481822. I'll take your insults for giving them out. But listen, serious topic. What do you reckon, guys? Are you concerned about the flood situation in your area? If you are, I would love to hear from you. What did you witness? Like, what did you see outside of your window or on your commute to work? Did you actually see any flooding? Were you concerned? I was concerned about my kids, Brother T. I was concerned about the school and the fact that the Astro at where my children go to school was all flooded today and yesterday. It was literally a lake, which is quite scary, actually.
So they could have gone swimming instead.
They could have gone swimming and maybe canoeing and stuff, and it's an extracurricular activity. That's probably what they would have done in Pakistan, to be honest.
Made use of the situation.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, we're going to be talking about another important topic in a moment, and that's a new think tank that is out. We're going to be talking to the guys who started that in a second. But coming up in half an hour's time, we're going to talk about what's the best way to stay fit? Gym, sports, or walking? And we've got some amazing guests for that topic. We've got Leo Nazar and Sister Jamila joining us for that. And also the last topic of tonight's program is about is the UK still attractive for investors? Actually, is that correct? I'm not sure if I got the correct.
No, my friend, I think you need to look at the sheet.
my script is messed up here. But the fourth topic isn't that topic. It's actually the best age to start a family. And we've got an amazing guest, Sheikh Nuruddin Rashid, is going to be giving us some essential words of wisdom on that topic. When is the best time to start a family? All that and more coming up on tonight's edition of Friday Night Live. But right now, I actually want to go to our second topic. It's a really important one where we turn to a think tank that's been making waves recently, and that think tank is called Equi. Now, this think tank is taking a bold, innovative approach to some of the world's most pressing challenges, combining cutting-edge research with practical solutions. Joining us is Sinan Siak, a senior researcher at Equi and also a thought leader in international development. Sinan, it's a pleasure to have you here on tonight's program.
Assalamualaikum. It's a pleasure to be here on the program as well.
Well, thank you so much. And if I can ask you to stay muted whilst we're talking as well, and unmute at the time when the time is right. Also, Sinan, alongside Sinan, we're joined by Aman Qureshi, the Chief Operating Officer at Equi, who has a background in strategic planning and management. Aman, thank you for joining us tonight.
No worries. Thank you for having us.
Delighted to have you both. So, Sinan, let me start off with you, if I may, and we'll go on to the amazing paper that you guys wrote on the contributions that the Muslim community is making to the UK economy. But Sinan, let me start off around asking you about Equi, which is a relatively new player, but it's already making a name for itself. So what do you reckon sets Equi apart from other think tanks out there, would you say?
Thank you, Abdul. So I think in terms of what makes us different, I think this is something that even Aman will talk about a bit. Mainly, our work aims to develop a new and authentic narrative for Britain's 4 million Muslims, from a community that is usually presented as a drain on society, it's unemployed or underskilled, poor health, etc., to one that is a values-driven, ethical, law-abiding, thriving and productive part of the UK, and that the government can ill afford to ignore our contributions and unlock our potential for the benefit of all. So that's how we are looking at it from Equi's point of view as and British Muslims in the UK.
That's a really good way of putting it. So, Aman, let me go to you as COO. You've been involved in shaping the strategic direction of Equi. Can you tell us more about how you plan to tackle these global issues that affect Muslims and everyone else around us in a more tangible way?
Yeah, sure. So, we're headed up by our managing director, Javed Khan, OBE, who is, of course, what was the lead on this government smoking review, vast experience in the civil sector and beyond. Our think tank was really born from a recognition that British Muslims aren't necessarily included in the crucial area of public policy formation. It's driven by a desire to contribute more fully to health and the well-being of the UK, bringing into the play our very Muslim values, our ethical values of public service. We say we want to have outcomes that will be driven by British Muslims, but not simply for British Muslims. So, we're committed to an evidence-based approach that can hopefully help all of society. And just on your point about more global issues, well, our expertise and our focus is about creating data and enriching and fulfilling the potential of the British Muslim community specifically, I should say.
Yeah, do you know, I like that, because I think one of the deficits we have, the malnutrition of data and facts, if I can put it like that, which is a big concern. And we do need, I would say, organizations like yours to actually bring to the fold and above the fold on websites and newspapers the actual facts. Dare they wish to publish them is a different story altogether, and that's another challenge that we have. But one thing that you guys did do recently, which I actually took the time to read, was your paper on the impact of British Muslims on UK and British society. And it's really interesting because, and let me get Brother T on this as well. Brother T, we know, especially being born and raised in the UK, that we know we have an impact on British society, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
Definitely, right? I mean, if you look at the work that we just do in Luton, we know we're having an impact for the better. For example, let me give you some credit here, and also the people that you work with on Luton Food Bank, right? That's not an Islamically affiliated initiative, right? It's everyone gets involved. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely.
So there is impact happening, and you guys wrote this interesting paper, and I think just for the listeners to know, the report estimates, this is the paper by Equi, the report estimates that British Muslims contribute £70 billion annually to the UK economy, spanning sectors like healthcare, education, and transportation. So my question to either of you, so feel free to unmute and come in, guys, is which contributions have been most overlooked by policymakers and the public, and why do you think these remain underappreciated? Because literally the riots that happened about a month or so ago, I'm sure if people knew that, listen, my British Muslim or Muslim counterparts are actually adding £70 billion, dare I say, maybe even paying my benefits if I'm on benefits and contributing to those in a heavy way, why are these being underappreciated? Sinan, Aman, over to you guys.
Yeah, I'll let Sinan come in there as the senior researcher. But I think, you make a really good point about the riots. And some people might say in a time like this, why are we focusing on the Muslim community specifically? Well, I would say it's not a mutually exclusive equation. As a community, working class communities across the UK share many of the same issues. And I think too often those communities will try to get pitted against each other. At Equi, we hope to try and create solutions that help everyone, including the broader society. And our report goes into some of those key areas in a bit much more detail. So I'll hand over to Sinan.
Right. So thanks, Aman, and thanks, Abdul, again. So in terms of our contributions, right, something that we need to be looking into, for example, is the number of Muslims in the NHS right now. We have almost 46,000. That's what we have pointed out. We have almost 46,000 people in the NHS alone, and it's not just people operating at every level, but 30% of these figures are also operating at more senior levels. That's consultants and GPs and surgeons and so on. Then that's more than the national average of like 10% of people who are normally hired at these levels. So we can say that we are outsized in terms of our performance within the NHS, right? And that's not just it. So we also have, for example, the education and civil service. So we have, around 11,000 teachers across the UK and over 18,000 Muslim civil servants, right, working with all aspects of the government over here. And these contributions largely remain invisible because discussions about diversity in these sectors normally focus on racial or gender representation rather than religious or faith-based representation, right? Also, another thing that we need to keep in mind is that in terms of entrepreneurship, largely now the narrative has focused on smaller shops, which is the base of how bigger businesses have developed over time. So now we have almost 25 billion pounds, which is coming in annually, and there are hundreds of thousands of Muslims being employed. Muslims and non-Muslims, being employed all over the UK, especially in places outside.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt you,
especially in places outside of London.
Nice one. Thanks for that. Because if you look at, cash and carries, for example, Best Way Cash and Carry, that is a Muslim-owned and operated business that started decades ago and has grown into something, a national employer, not just even in the UK, but overseas as well. And I think, what scares me the most, gents, is that if we are contributing £70 billion annually to the UK economy, imagine we all left. And that brings me on to my next question, which is around discrimination and immigration, because your report finds that British Muslims are 50% more likely to consider immigration due to religious discrimination. And that's really interesting. I want to ask you, how urgent is this issue? What did you find? And what specific changes do you propose to address these systemic barriers before they cause significant brain and wealth drain? And we hear about countries like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, developing countries around the world talk about the brain drain where people, get educated in those countries and move to the UK. But the reverse is also true. And I think the UK relies on a lot of people like you and me. I mean, I was born and raised here. Sinan, I don't know about you guys, whether you were born and raised in the UK or not, but it doesn't make a difference. There's people in the UK that have qualifications and that are highly educated. If we were to leave, what changes need to happen to keep us in and make sure that we don't consider moving out due to religious discrimination, which is rife. I mean, we touched on the riots, right, Brother T? I mean, I don't know what went through your mind, but did you ever think about shutting up shop when you saw the riots happening? Did it cross your mind even for a second?
No, definitely. I remember having a conversation with yourself. I think it might have been 5-6 years ago. I'm not sure if you remember talking about how
my memory's not that good, man.
Difficult life may become for us as Muslims in this country, and we do need to have a second home as such.
An exit plan, exit strategy.
Exactly. And to be honest, when these riots and things like this happen, it does really cross your mind saying how safe are our children out there when they're going to school, when they're going to the mosque. And I remember there was an incident, I think recently, where an uncle got attacked coming back from the masjid after Isha. So I think there are instances that are taking place which really do worry us, and especially about the future of our children.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right. But I think in a very twisted kind of way, these riots have actually brought the communities, dare I say, even non-Muslim communities together with us in a way that maybe they wouldn't have. They've actually had the reverse effect. I mean, you saw all the people coming out trying to repair the mosque and coming out in protest against the behavior of these far-right terrorists, right? If you think about it, they're normally called thugs, but I call them terrorists because they were out there to terrorize people like you and me, who are, who look different, because of the fact that they have these incorrect ideas about us. But anyway, 01582481822. But let me go back to our think tank expert, Equi, around this. So, Brother Sinan, Aman, what say you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, look, that conversation you've just had between yourselves is probably a good snapshot of the conversations that we've been having as a community right across this country. You know, a lot of us have been kind of considering where we belong in society, that sense of belonging that's under question. And certainly, you know, the report brought that to the fore. It's, you know, it's worth restating that the report shows 50% more likely British Muslims are to leave the country compared to the average. And actually that increases if you look at affluent Muslims in particular. More affluent Muslims are 65% more likely to leave the country. Now, this could lead to a real potential brain and wealth drain if not addressed urgently. It would mean not only the loss of an underappreciated and incredibly hard-working segment of our population, but with such a young population, it would also represent unfulfilled potential for the UK economy as a whole, particularly in the context of a more aging population. And you know, there's some key drivers for this, and I'll hand over to Sinan, who could probably talk about some of these drivers that you've already touched upon, such as religious discrimination, and discuss some of the impact.
Thank you, man. Ooh, I think we may have lost Sinan temporarily because he seems to be frozen. But let's try and get him back in a moment. But I do agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk through some of them while he gets back.
But you know what, whilst he gets back, I want to make a quick comment on this. I don't believe that we should have an exit strategy. The fact that, you know, some of us in our minds, we feel like we should have a plan B just goes to show that this country still hasn't connected with us in the way that it should, and we don't feel fully included in the way that we should. And, you know, Dalek, I was joking. I do remember the conversation you and I had because I was quite strong on those beliefs back then, where, you know, this isn't my country. The UK isn't my home. But believe it or not, I've changed that belief system that I had because I strongly believe that this is my home. This is where I was born. This is where I was raised. This is the culture that I strongly associate myself with. And Islam is fully compatible with the UK, and the UK is fully compatible with Islam. Am I here to convert everyone to Islam? Absolutely not. I'm here to contribute to society, make a difference, and feed my family and live happily ever after, if such a thing is possible, and hopefully open the gates of paradise in the hereafter. But
I think the question one needs to ask is, especially for people out there who are born in this country, who've lived all their life here, who only know this country as home, why do they still not feel like they belong?
Exactly.
And I think it's a shame that we have that feeling if you don't belong, because why should we be made to feel that this is any less of our country than anybody else's who's born here?
Yeah, Aman, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know there's been research on this by yourselves and others, but is it because we haven't done a good enough job? Because I'm a great introspective person. I like to think about what I could have done, not just what the other person could have done as well. But what's your take? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, our report goes into a bit more detail about this, but it discussed, for example, Muslims are 3 times more likely to cite religious discrimination as one of those key drivers. So I really don't think we should overlook that key point that we've touched upon multiple times already. And the impact of that can be really widespread, from billions in lost tax contributions to, you know, across arts, culture, you know, across the whole spectrum of British society. You know, we make valuable contributions. And, you know, I think looking back on why we are where we are, it's part of the picture. But I think it's also looking forward, you know, looking at the data in terms of where we're at now and looking at what possible changes we can make to get to a better place. And, you know, we make a number of proposed changes, policy recommendations in our report across different departments of government. You know, for example, promoting faith inclusivity, more faith literate policies to ensure workplaces and public institutions are inclusive. Some of the things people cite is, you know, if you emigrated to Malaysia or Dubai because, you know, I just got fed up of having to explain where I was going and they were going to pray, or, you know, it became a battle to try and get some time off to do their Friday prayers. All these basic accommodations that employers can make quite easily that actually add up to the sum total of making people feel more included in society.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. And I would even say that some employers are sympathetic to that, and some are alien to that. Definitely, I think there's some good work being done by some employers. I have personal experience of my employer in the UK before I was living in the UAE and after. I would say that was very accommodating. Obviously, in countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Muslim countries, prayer is a part of life. You can just get up and walk out, and there are no qualms, even though there are a lot of Hindus in the UAE who don't obviously pray 5 times a day. You know, if you happen to have a Hindu boss, he has to abide by that, and legally you're protected. I would love to be in a world where legally you are protected to pray as a Muslim in the UK, because I think that's doable. I think it's the right thing to do, as long as people don't abuse it. You know, you can see cases where someone's gone out for a couple of hours saying, I've gone to pray. But that's the minority case. But let me go to the next bit, because I want to cover much of the paper as I can. And I can see Sinan is back on the line as well. Thanks for coming back, Sinan. I hope your internet connection, you got to get Equi to update your internet connection, bro.
I'm traveling at the moment, so yeah.
I'm joking. But listen, Islamic finance and halal markets, because you guys touch on that as well. With London, you say with London holding 85% of Europe's Islamic banking assets. Can you believe that? So everyone says that London is kind of losing its steam, or has lost its steam when it came to financial activity, at least in the city, because of Brexit. But you're telling us, guys, that 85% of Europe's Islamic banking assets and the halal value sector is worth over £8 billion. I'm questioning what other untapped opportunities exist for the UK to really make a difference in terms of these industries, because there's loads of people that want a halal way of getting a loan, a mortgage, etc., etc. It's been going on for years, but most of that is happening in London.
Yeah, it bears repeating just how much of the European Islamic banking assets actually centered in the UK. But that represents a drop in the overall global market of 3.4 trillion. So that gives you some idea of just how big a scope we have to expand that element of the UK as a hub. And there's lots of untapped opportunities there, and hopefully Sinan can go over what we've covered in our report in terms of some of those examples of untapped opportunities.
We're running out of time, but go for it, Sinan. Over to you. All right, he's
okay.
Again.
No worries. Well, look, the overall, I can give you an overview, which is, for example, expanding our Islamic finance offerings, positioning the UK as a global hub, looking at the halal market specifically, looking at the tapping into the export of halal certified products. That's not just food. We can look at pharmaceuticals, cosmetics. We've seen a great growth in entrepreneurship in our communities, as you touched upon actually earlier as well, and particularly female entrepreneurship in our communities as well.
Massive. But let me ask you this as well. It's an offshoot question from this, but the impact even the boycotts are making, right? Because if you look at the power of the Muslim purse and the Muslim pocket, it's massive, right? In terms of the fact that companies like Coca-Cola are adjusting their forecasts because of what's happening in Israel, for example.
Yes, of course. I think it shows the power of the Muslim pound. Our focus at Equi is to really just try to see how we can advocate for a better society for all of British Muslims on a domestic level. But of course, we don't exist in a vacuum. We are affected by global issues, and we care about global issues, and it shows the value of our economic contribution to the UK that companies are feeling the impact of such initiatives. And I think by
yeah, thanks for that, Aman. I'm going to try and give Sinan one last chance to say something. Otherwise, we've always got the future as well, and other papers that you guys are going to publish. But Sinan, let me ask you this, because we've only got a couple of minutes left. But in your report, British Muslims are described as making vast charitable and economic contributions. Yet, as we talked about earlier, negative stereotypes still persist. How do you think the findings of your report can be used to shift the narrative from dependency to highlighting our role in UK prosperity? Over to you.
Yeah, I think there are many ways to do that. So number one would be obviously to talk more about it, not just through shows, but also through public discourse as well, where we write different articles in mainstream media, in Muslim media as well, and then highlight this role more further, right? But the second thing that we can also do is also leverage on these contributions, especially the charitable sector, and that itself creates a shift in narrative, right? For example, it's not just for local communities to work with this, but it's also for the government to think about how can they work with Muslim charities, for for example, and work with the the public infrastructure and different sectors within the public infrastructure so that we can revitalize some of these things. And by doing those actions, we can also significantly change the narrative on how Muslim contributions are seen to the UK society over here, right? So these are, we would say, like, these are some ways that we can engage with, and these are the policy recommendations that we've also given in our report.
Wow, there you go. Well, lots of great stuff that you guys have started to do, and let me go ahead and wish you well. And Aman, if somebody wanted to check out your papers and your research that you've published so far and that you'll do in the future, what can they do?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to us, equi.org.uk. That's equi.org.uk, or you can drop us an email at info@equi.org.uk. We're always open to any new ideas, any fresh thinking, any leads for funding, as of course, as we're looking for financial sustainability. So thank you for having us. And
you're welcome. And I think that the financial part's really important because, many of us are very happy to read your research and maybe benefit from it in terms of the data that you present. But taking and capturing that data is expensive and takes someone's time, right? And that way we do need to fund initiatives like yours.
Yeah, no, of course. And any support is welcome, and any leads. And of course, we're looking for fresh ideas, fresh thinking, because this is the journey that we want to go on together for the benefit of all British society.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you very much. So Sinan, Sia, and Aman, Qureshi, really
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much.
time tonight on Friday
Thank
Night
you
Live.
so much.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening and weekend. All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Brother Tariq, of course, beaming out to the good people of Luton, Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, and Peterborough, and the Midlands through our partner stations across the nation. Coming up after the break, we've got an amazing couple of topics. What's the best way to stay fit? Is it the gym, sports, or walking? And also, one of the other topics we're talking about is the best age to start a family. All that and more on Friday Night Live. Don't go away. Stay tuned.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salatul Maghrib.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज मगरिब का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 72 11110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
Would you like to sponsor the Azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamualaikum. Welcome back to part 4 or 3 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 27th of September 2024. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, joined in the studio tonight with my co-presenter, Brother T. We're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, and Peterborough through our partner stations across the nation. Well, wherever you're tuning in from, whether you're sitting comfortably at home or catching us on the move, thank you for joining us. We're live on all platforms tonight, so don't forget to get involved in the discussion. 01582 481822. You can ask a question to any of our guests at any time. The door is always open for our listeners. We've got some important topics lined up, as we've been talking about already. And tonight's show is all about the issues that are on everyone's mind right now. We've talked about the devastating floods we've seen recently across the Europe and UK, and also just been introduced to a brand new think tank, Equi, that's aiming to shape our future, to the ever-relevant topic now we're about to go into of fitness and well-being. So what do you reckon? We're about to go into our next topic, and this is going to be interesting. And for our third topic, I want to go straight into that because this is such an important topic, and I don't want to waste any time because we keep running out of time on this program because the topics are so deep. So for our third topic, we're discussing something a little lighter but no less important, and that's staying fit. With so many options out there, it's hard to know what's best. Should we be hitting the gym, playing sports, or simply walking more? And to help us unpack this, we have Leo Nazar, a qualified nutritionist and fitness coach who's helped hundreds of people reach their fitness goals. I'm hoping he can give me some tips tonight on the program, and he is on the line right now. Leo, welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you very much for having me on.
Listen, Leo, I need a quick tip, but we'll talk about this in a second. But I keep doing bench presses, but my chest just doesn't come out. I don't know what's going on. I want one of those big chests, but it's just flat.
Well, I think maybe couple hitting it from different angles might do it, rather than using the same exercises probably that you're doing.
Yeah, or my weights are just like 20 kg maybe, and not heavy enough.
No, it still works. I mean, what we'll have to talk probably with you after the program and give you a little program put together.
Beat me up after the program. Fair enough. Sounds good. But we also joined, thanks Leo, we'll come to you in a second. We're also joined by Jamila, a female personal trainer specializing in fitness for women, who's known for her work in motivating women to stay active. Jamila, assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to have you with us as well.
Thanks for having me join you. Looking
Great.
forward to it.
Are you in the gym right now? Are you literally?
The light keeps going off, so I do apologize.
No worries. Yeah. Oh wow, there you go. That's called dedication to the sport. There you go. Oh, but Leo, let me start with you, if I may. So with so many fitness trends out there, what do you reckon is the most effective way for people to get started if they're new to exercise? And let me share some inhibitions that I have. So I've always had an inhibition to going to the gym because I'm scared of showing my skinny arms and legs, and everybody else around me is much bigger than I am. And I've got this, I'm I'm just being completely honest. That's one of the reasons I don't go to the gym is because of that reason. Everyone's going to see my skinny arms and legs, my flat chest, and think, look at this guy. But what's the most effective way if people are new to exercise and they want to kick things off?
Right. I don't think it's really about having big arms and big legs. I think the person, if they can afford to go to the gym, they can spend time going to the gym, then yes, it is a good idea because it motivates you rather than being at home where you've got just the four walls or you're training outdoors. Sometimes motivation isn't there. So, there are many, many ways of staying fit. I'll be honest with you, gym is just one. Yeah. So if you are thinking of going to the gym, right, there's obviously bits and tips I can give you guys in order to what to do when you're going there. But if you're new, you've never done any kind of exercise, I'd recommend to start a little bit at home first to kind of get out of that shyness first and maybe go for some walks, maybe 10,000 steps, as they say, minimum walk, go for a swim, even join one of these fitness classes where you're actually going to the gym or you're going to a fitness center where you're just taking part in a class. And again, the class could be anything from spinning class to a legs, pumps, and tums class, for example.
Excellent. No, Jazakallah. Brother Tariq here, Leo, Jazakallah for that there.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, you okay?
I'm fine, thank you. You okay?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. To be honest, I think I kind of echo what Brother Abdullah Kabir was saying regarding attending the gym. And of course, when you see people like yourselves there and you
Have we lost him?
Yeah, I think it's just on mute.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, guys?
I can hear you, Leo, but I don't think we can hear the station.
Looks like it's just me and you then.
don't hear us, Sister Jamila?
Oh, excellent.
You should be able to hear us. Can you hear us now?
Yes, you can.
Yes, we can.
You can hear us. That's fine. It was just, I think, when we removed one of the signs there. That's fine, inshallah. So yeah, I think the only thing, I think, Brother Leo, I think you're right. I think it's a different stuff for different people, and we don't necessarily have to hit the gym if you genuinely feel that's not for you. And sometimes you're right. A lot of our local brothers go into running. A lot of people do walking. One of the things I want to look at, and maybe coming to yourself, Sister Jamila, is around the for sisters in particular. I think sometimes, especially in Luton, we may not necessarily have female-only gyms, for example. Sometimes accessibility may be less, where they're not open all the time. With some gyms where they open 24 hours, they generally tend to be mixed gyms. For the sisters out there, what advice would you have for a lot of our mothers, our wives, our sisters listening out there who just want to stay fit? They're not like Abdullah Kabir, who wants to have the big scary gym look, but they just want to stay fit. What would your advice be to them?
I think the best thing is to find the time for yourself as well, especially for women with loads of commitments, family, children, loads of different things to think about. Finding that time for yourself, and if you are feeling like I don't have time for the gym, or like you said, the barriers with opening times of female-only gyms, go out for a walk. Walking, you cannot beat walking. It's an amazing form of exercise. It's completely free and you can go wherever you like. But at home, you've got the options of home workouts. But what you lack there is motivation. Some people having to switch on that YouTube video or whatever it might be, they get distracted easily. So walking, I would suggest as a really good starting point that can be done any time of the day and anywhere as well.
Yeah, excellent. I think walking is very good. But also, I think, to be honest, one thing with walking, and again, maybe coming back to Brother Leo as well on this, is there, and I've often been told this, walking as beneficial as it may be, you do need to at least maybe try to walk a little faster so you can actually feel like you're making your body work, so you're not actually just going for a gentle stroll. Is there a particular way of walking? Should you try to walk fast? Should you try to increase your heart rate? What would your advice be to, especially someone like myself, for example, or maybe even someone maybe slightly older? I know quite a few of our elder uncles who like to go for evening walks. Can't necessarily run anymore. They're not going to obviously likely to injure themselves if they run. But is it worth maybe even trying to walk at a slightly faster pace, or does it matter if they just go for a gentle stroll?
Who's this question directed to?
Yourself, Brother Leo, yeah.
Yeah, okay, brother. Yeah, there are many ways, obviously, to make the intensity greater with the advantage. So, for example, you could keep the same pace, or trying to keep the same pace, maybe incline, going up, walking upwards, walking down a hill is also different angles working on the muscles and the group, and it does fatigue you a lot more quicker. So there are other variations to just basic walking flat, for example, and walking on different floors. And I've said that before on many occasions. The first thing to make sure is when you are going out for a walk, at least you've got the right footwear. So it's quite important to have some kind of trainers which are quite decent.
I
And when
can't
you
wear my
are
chappal.
your chappal is probably not the best thing to wear out when you're going out. But if you can have, if you're wearing something that's not so great, then you need to make sure that the floor underneath is a little bit more cushioning for you. And that would be maybe if it's not raining, walk on the grass rather than walking on. I've seen a lot of people running on concrete and stuff. That's all great if you've got good footwear and decent trainers on. But otherwise, some of these other footwear that people wear, like you said, chappal, for example, wouldn't be the ideal thing that I would suggest somebody go running on a road, for example. So there's parks, there's off roads, there's up and down your own stairs. I mean, even at home, just climbing. I mean, I've got 15 stairs in my house. Going up and down that 7, 8 times, that builds a workout as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the same pace. And you can easily make it difficult or more easier by inclining something, walking upwards, and the pace can remain the same. You can move your arms a little bit more quicker. Yeah, so that makes more work for your body than just your legs moving. So there are many other ways that we can do. And then there's interval training as well, where for the people who have done this for a little while, who walking is not enough. I mean, I've seen, to be honest, I've seen so many women and that going for walks and that, yeah, walk is, it's okay, I suppose, it's a start. But to me, that's about all it is. It's just a starting point, and we need to increase from that. I've seen many ladies walking in mornings in groups, great, because then they can socialize at the same time. But what they don't understand is we don't keep to that for months and months and months on end, because there has to be a progression. So there
I
has
can
to
see
be a
Leah.
plan.
Leah, let me go.
Brother Abdullah, I
yeah.
said a thought in my mind which I really don't want to have for Brother Leo. There was a sister once who actually said they were just talking about exercise and stuff. Said if you, rather than doing your ironing upstairs, do your ironing downstairs, and every time you iron a shirt or a trouser, whatever, go upstairs,
Take it
hang
back
it up, go
upstairs.
come back downstairs,
Yeah.
iron another one.
Yeah.
And literally when Leo was saying I've got 15 stairs and I keep going up and down, I'm thinking, is he ironing and going up and down? But I can't imagine Leo holding an iron for some reason.
There you go. But it's
No,
an interesting thought. But let me get Jamila in this as well. So Jamila, some of this comes down to not just your physical attributes, but also being mentally ready, right? Just being mentally prepared. How much of brain power is involved as well? Just having the motivation to get up and, dare I say, go for a walk. Because sometimes I've thought to myself, I've had a long day of work, and my work is, I would suggest, is sedentary. I'm sitting down practically all day, and I just don't feel like going for a walk, and mentally you're just exhausted.
See, so I always say, like when I speak to my clients about this, where you're exhausted after a long day of work, you're going to sit on the sofa and you're going to feel more exhausted because now you're relaxing, thinking about how tired you are. Whereas that 10, 15, 20 minutes that you go out and go for a walk or have some form of movement in the form of exercise, you're going to feel a lot different after that. And you're going to feel motivated, you're going to feel energized, you're going to feel more productive. And all of these things just encourage you to keep going. And like the word you use, motivation, is perfect because that's the hardest thing. I think, Leo, you'll agree. A lot of people, when it comes to fitness, it's being motivated to get started. And then once you're started and you use your time to do whatever form of exercise it is, ironing up and down the stairs, going out for a walk, going to the gym or a class, whatever it is, the feeling after you are not going to regret. You're only going to regret sitting for a while and thinking, I should have and I could have done something. And playing on that and using that each day, like, I felt great the other day, so I'm going to do that again. And a lot of women who come to my classes, I own a studio and small group classes, and the women who come, one lady today, she said, last week, the way I felt compared to the way I felt before, especially with the menopause approaching, I feel so good, but I never would have done if I didn't start moving. And this was her words out of her mouth. And I'm like, oh my God, send me this feedback because more people need to hear it. It's hard to
why
imagine.
is it? Can I ask Leo, maybe yourself, is why do we feel good when we work out or when we get our heart beating and that blood flowing? Why is it that we feel better?
Well, our body produces endorphins. So when we activate, we're talking about a lot of training here. To be fair, it's not all about training. I'll be quite honest. Physically and mentally, like you said, it's not just about physical side. There's also preparation of what you're going to your diet. That plays a big part as well on how you feel. Yeah, and stress levels, what work you do. So I think when someone decides to want to become fit, they've got to look at the whole picture. What are they going to do about their food diet? What are they going to eat? I think that's just as important as just the training side. So yeah, like I said, walking is the most simple and easy exercise. Getting motivated is the harder part. But that's just one part of getting fit. There are the other elements which are, like I said, about your diets, what you
Yeah.
eat, how
Let's come
you
on to
feel.
diet. I wanna come on to the diet in a second, but Jamila, can I ask you a personal question?
I'm sure she
Sorry,
doesn't
I've
mind.
lost you guys.
Can you hear us? Are we back?
I can't.
All right. So, Jamila, I was going to ask you. I was asking your permission to ask a personal question.
Go for it.
Okay. What did you have for breakfast this
I mean, I
morning?
regret that.
What does your breakfast look like this morning?
This morning, I'll be honest, I have a biscuit every single morning. I had a chocolate digestive with
No.
Weetabix. Because the reason why I have my chocolate digestive, I love biscuits. If I cut it out, I'm going to want it even more. Whereas if I start my day with a biscuit and I've had it, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, done. I've started my day. Whereas if I didn't, I'd want another one later on and I probably wouldn't have one, I'd have more. So that's my motivation and discipline. I've started my day with what I wanted, it's done, forgotten about, and now I'll be disciplined for the rest of the day. But yeah, I start with Weetabix every morning. I'm boring.
Okay, that's cool. And Leo, you were vigorously nodding your head there when Jamila mentioned the fact that she has a digestive biscuit.
No, I think it's excellent because like I said, I had people before, they have a trifle in the morning. So, things like this, I think the best time, like I said, breakfast means you're breaking your fast. Through the night time, most people are asleep. They're not eating anything. So their body doesn't need that much energy. But when they wake up, it's important to have breakfast. And to be honest, if I was going to have chocolate biscuits throughout the day or any time in the day, I would pick the best time. It's the first thing in the morning when you have your breakfast. So that would be the perfect time. You've got the rest of the day to work that off. So, and like she said, it gives her that little energy. If she has it later on in the day, she might have more than just one biscuit. I have nothing against that. I think that's absolutely perfect, and that goes for
makes sense.
everybody.
It does, and
Yes.
that makes a lot of sense. But Jamila, how do you just have the one biscuit? Because the problem I have is I have the one biscuit, then I want another one, and then another one. How do you stop yourself? I know that sounds like a stupid question, but I'm just being as honest as I can about what's going through my head.
It's also like it's routine. So what I'll do is as soon as I've made my tea, I have my biscuit done, then I have my breakfast, then I'll get ready for work. So I don't have time to be going back to that packet and having more. I have a set routine and a set amount of time. So that's where that discipline element comes in. And discipline, Leo, you'd probably agree, is one of the hardest things to try and master.
Oh yes. But
Because obviously we're human at the end of the day, and we have like all these thoughts and desires and feelings that affect our moods. And discipline is really, really important. Once you've got it, it's easier to stay consistent. And that's where you get
just
results.
further in answering that, you guys, I think, like I mentioned before, I normally portion control stuff. So if I'm having my biscuits, for example, I'll put two there if I had two, and that'd be it. I'll put the packet away out of sight. Okay, so then I'll have everything portion control. I'll have this, I'll have portion of that. Like for breakfast, I normally have eggs, I have brown toast, I have certain things. So, I'll portion control that first. So I don't want to have a whole carton of oranges if I'm going to have oranges because I'm not sure how much I'm going to have. So I'd rather put half a glass in, get everything controlled, and then I'll sit down and have my breakfast. So, like you said, yes, you are right. It's very important to be disciplined, and that is the hardest key, I think, to be quite honest.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go on to the food bit, Leo, that you mentioned earlier. So, from your experience, how important is nutrition when it comes to maintaining a fitness routine? You mentioned your breakfast, but what are the most common mistakes people make from your experience?
I think they're not consistent. The main thing is I've had a lot of women that I used to do legs, bums, and tums classes before, like I said in the other gym, which was amazing because I was so impressed because they were working so hard. The thing is, though, they were not eating the right food. In fact, they were not eating right food. They weren't eating enough food. So they were having like breakfast in the morning and then they'll have one meal late in the evening and go to bed. And there's the way they were up thinking, their mind was, we're not having that much, so we're going to lose weight. Like I've said to people many times before, it's better to control the portions, make them smaller, and eat regular throughout the day. Like I normally give routines and I give diets to people, and the food is about 3 hours time. You need to have something. So you control what you're going to have, and for 3 hours, for example, you absolutely have nothing. If you're hungry during that time, then you're going to have a salad. You're going to have to try to discipline yourself. And the why I say is to everybody, put a goal in your head to start with. The goal is no matter what, you're going to do this routine for 4 weeks. You've got to give me that 3 to 4 weeks. And then you see the changes. Before that, you might not. So if you give up before that time, what you do is you put that goal in your mind, you go for that 4 weeks, and within that 4 weeks, you will see changes happening to you. You won't feel so lethargic anymore. You won't be so tired. You'll be full of energy. You'll have more fun in your life. You'll feel stress levels changing. You'll feel your body changing as well if you're eating and you're training right. So this is why I think people need to get right, to put a routine in their heads and say, right, we're going to go for this, not half-heartedly, we'll just have a little go. Stick to it. You know how much exercise they recommend on average in a week? How many hours you're meant to do? About 150 hours in a week is an
Wow.
average person. And
Wow.
that's quite, and you know what, if you break that down into minutes per day, because I'm like that, when they give you figures like, I like to break it down per day, 20 to 30 minutes, they're saying, that's per day. All right. And this is an average person. So they're looking, if you're doing 7 times, meaning every day, you need to do at least 20 minutes.
Yeah,
So
and that's not bad.
going,
I mean, that's doable, right? 20 minutes isn't hard, but
no,
it's not, is it? Yeah, I mean, you just got to get into the routine, as you both have been quite rightly mentioning. But Jamil, let me come to you because we're almost running out of time. But yeah, I'm going to come back to you in a second and ask about stress as well, because that's an important one for me personally. But Jamila, firstly to you, which is, in your opinion, what are the most underrated forms of exercise that people often sort of overlook?
Like we said earlier, walking and stretching, because you can exercise as much as you like, but if you are not flexible and you are not stretching, you're going to
very
injure
good.
yourself whilst working out. Now, this is one thing that I'm telling all of my clients about every single day, because if, like I said, walking's great. You don't really need to be warmed up, anything like that. But if you're going to start jumping around, picking up weights, you need to be flexible. Your muscles need to be warmed up. And those are underrated. If you are stretching properly, you're going to feel like you've had a mini workout before you've even started your workout. So I would say to everybody, start your day, put on a YouTube video if you're at home, do like a 10-minute yoga or Pilates workout. Go out for a walk. Like Leo said, walking is a really good starting point, and it is essential to
Oh,
start.
yes.
Walking is an exercise, and walking should be part of your normal day-to-day lifestyle. And that 20 minutes that you said, or 30 minutes a day, that should just be walking as standard part of your lifestyle. And so, yeah, walking super underrated, stretching and
Great.
getting your body underrated.
Walking and stretching, brother T. There you go. And Leo, last question to you, if I may. I like what you mentioned about stress, because I don't think there's anyone listening to this program who's over 35, 30 that is not stressed in some way, shape, or form, especially life events. It could be work, it could be family, it could be we all have pressures on us. How does exercise help alleviate stress?
That goes with the martial arts, like we also do. So, if you have a punch bag, you have stress, you want to let out, you hit the bag, you do a workout. Honestly, that's how I let my stress out. But
Yeah.
there's many ways of doing that. Yes, it's like Jamila said, you can go to a yoga class, a Pilates class. There, everybody's there. They've got other people around. They feeling the same, and afterwards, they normally in a lot of the gyms they all chatter afterwards anyway. So you make more friends, and they tell you their problems. And you know what? Sometimes this all socializing, getting out and away from the house reduces stress as well. So what I tend to do to reduce my stress is don't let things get to you. Whatever it is, let it in, okay? Work on it, but don't let it hold you back. Don't dwell on problems, because that's not how they're going to get better. So for me, how exercise helps is by letting off your steam, as it were. And that could be through running, jogging. I've seen a lot of people jogging every morning. As for the walking, again, walking is an exercise, yes, but walking is a natural thing as far as I'm concerned. That should be part of your daily lifestyle. That as I'm concerned. If somebody's just starting, then that's I understand. They have not done anything more than that before. So walking at a faster pace, walking uphill, that and then timed. Everything is timed, everything is distance. The last time you got to that distance in 5 minutes, this time you got there in 4.5. Things like this to progress is I think is improvement. That's the way we should
Amazing.
look at it.
Amazing advice. Well, let me go back to Jamila. Jamila, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, especially some of the women listening to tonight's program, how can they reach out and get some more advice from you?
Definitely message me on Instagram. My social media handle is Jamila__fitness. Drop me a message. I'll be happy to reply to you, give you any tips you need.
Amazing. We're so grateful for your time, Jamila. And Leo, how about yourself? How can people get in touch with your organization?
To be honest, I think a lot of people already know about the organizations that I do. They have my mobile number. They can ring the studio, Leo Martial Arts and Fitness .co.uk. We're on Instagram as well for the Lionheart Freestyle Academy, and everything's on there.
That's awesome. Well, both of you, really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing all your excellent advice. Hopefully, we can have you back on the program in the future. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah. Thank you. Wa alaikum salam.
Wow, there you go. Brother T, takeaways from that, your thoughts?
I'm a bit sad to say when Leo's saying walking is an exercise, because that's as far as I was going to go.
Yeah.
He thinks that's a
But
start.
It's a good start. It's a good start, right? So if you're not doing anything, walking is better than nothing, right?
It is, and especially if you've got no intention of doing anything further. So when he said it's a start. But the other thing I think one of the brothers just messaged in now was cycling, which I think I wasn't actually mentioned. I think cycling sometimes can be seen as a social thing, but it's actually really good because you don't really seem like you're doing much, but it's actually it could be a good little activity if you enjoy it.
Difference. Yeah, cycling's a good one if you've got a bike. But you know what? If you haven't got a bike, you haven't got any weights at home, you haven't got a treadmill, you haven't got a gym membership, there is something free you can do, which is walk, right?
Yeah,
you go out
definitely.
and find. I actually walk with my neighbor who's a couple of roads away. When he goes for a walk, he gives me a shout and he said, "Do you want to join me?" And when I can, I do. He knows who he is because he's probably listening to tonight's program. But listen, we're going to come back for part 4, and after the break, we're asking the question: the best age to start a family. Is there a right time? This is Friday Night Live. Don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Luton's most luxurious venue for Asian weddings is now bigger and better than ever before. With 2 venues to choose from, Venue Central can provide the ultimate setting for your wedding. 2 huge venues, 1 high standard, right in the centre of Luton. Visit us online today at venuecentral.co.uk or call us now on 01582 451 767. Venue Central, affordable luxury in a central location.
Did you see that guy on TV?
What, that no comment guy?
Yeah, he was sick. What was his name?
I think it was Atiq Malik.
Yeah, Atiq Malik of Liberty Law Solicitors. Atiq Malik heads up the criminal law team at Liberty Law Solicitors, specialising in everything from serious crime down to road traffic offences.
To find out more or for a free telephone consultation, call 01582 459955.
Liberty Law, there when you need us most.
Zakat is an annual charge of 2.5% on any surplus wealth. The word zakat can be defined as purification and growth. It allows an individual to achieve balance and encourages new growth. The principle of knowing that all things belong to God encourages the purification of wealth and the growth of blessings. Zakat is obligatory on all Muslims who are able to do so. It is the personal responsibility of each Muslim to ease the economic hardship of others and to strive towards eliminating inequality in society. Zakat consists of spending a portion of one's wealth for the benefit of the poor and needy.
Are you ready to future-proof your workforce and upskill new and existing staff? Our portfolio of business and digital degree apprenticeships, facilitated by Sharia-compliant government funding, are applicable across all industries and sectors. With hands-on training and expert guidance, your staff will gain invaluable knowledge and fresh perspectives that benefit your business. For example, our project manager and digital marketer degree apprenticeships boost employee confidence, efficiency, and diversifies their skill set. Visit beds.ac.uk/apprenticeships to learn more. Choose career-powered education. Choose the University of Bedfordshire.
My name is Isa Ahmed Mola, and you are tuned into Inspire FM 105.1.
Join us for a superhero-themed Family Fun Day on Saturday, September 28th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Presented by Inspire FM, Muslimah Women's Members Club and the Dallas Center. Join us for a day full of fun and excitement with plenty of games and activities, competition, a variety of stalls, mouth-watering food, and so much more. Come dressed up as your favorite superhero and win a prize for the best costume. So join us on Saturday, September 28th at the Dallas Center from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Store bookings now open. Call 01582 410 333 for more information.
Since October 2023, Gaza faces unprecedented challenges. Muslim charity dedicated to Gaza for a decade steps up in trying times. Clean water, hot meals, and vital medical aid. Your support can deliver hope. £50 for emergency food, £70 for 20 meals, £150 for clean water, and £200 for essential medical aid. Unite at muslimcharity.org.uk/Gaza or call 03000 111 786.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamualaikum. Welcome back to the fourth and final part of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Brother T in the house this evening. It is Friday, the 27th of September, 2024, and we're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding us tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and the Midlands through our partner stations across the nation. Special shout out to all our listeners on Unity FM and Link FM, of course, and if you're in Luton, on Inspire FM as well. Welcome to all of you. I really hope you're enjoying this evening's program, this week's program of Friday Night Live. We go through a lot of effort to pick out the topics that are interesting to you. And if there's anything that we've missed, I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback, because you are what makes this program count. And we would love to hear from you as well, though, because nobody, I don't know what it is, Brother T, but nobody calls into this program. But, you know, when I'm at Jummah and stuff, people come up to me and say, oh, yeah, I heard your voice on the radio. You're doing a great job, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, why don't you call in and talk to us and share your perspectives?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think I find it similar in the morning show. A lot of the text messages are from kids. Kids actually love hearing their name on the radio, whereas the adults may be a bit more embarrassed. But I think, to be honest, if you want to share your thoughts, be anonymous. Be anonymous. You don't need to share your name if you don't want to.
Yeah, if your name is Tariq, you can call yourself Muhammad.
Yeah, I think everyone calls themselves Muhammad out there. But I think the point is...
That's right, you're Muhammad Tariq.
I think it's important to be able to get your thoughts out there. And I think, to be honest, one of the things I was just sharing with Abdul Rakbar on the break was the fact that a lot of times you see somebody, you think, you know what, you're so fat, man. Like, why don't you do something about it? And sometimes people might be out there and think, you know what, some people might be out there and think, you know what, I might be a little overweight, but you mean I'm not. I mean, what can I do? How can you make changes? Yeah. I think sometimes it is a situation where it is a conversation that needs to be had. And like Leo said, to be honest, I think it's sometimes just a start. You need to make a start. And like you said, your neighbor, mashallah, was going for walks with yourself. I remember Brother Amr out there, me and Brother Amr, this was a couple of years ago, then I think he injured himself and then we haven't really managed. But we used to go for daily walks. And it's about 5-6 miles.
Yeah.
And it was literally a chat.
Wow, 5-6 miles.
Literally,
amazing, yeah.
We'd try to do at least 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
And it was a chat, though. We'd just be chatting what you're doing at work, what's this project you're working on. And it'd be really nice. And I think if you can start some sort of social circle like that.
In the case of women, it's probably a bunch of gossip, right?
that's the other thing. Actually, you might be good for your dunya, but not sure about your akhirah.
Yeah, but I'm joking, women. So don't diss me here. But it's a joke. But you know what? I gotta say, you're absolutely right, because when I go for the walks with my neighbor, we do talk about work, we talk about life, we talk about our kids, we talk about stuff. It's a really good social activity, and guess what? You're actually helping out your body at the same time as well. So it's an amazing thing. I don't know if I can hack 5-6 miles though. That's a big thing.
To be honest, it used to take us about 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
I think more than any bodily strain, I think it's not too much to walk, but it's the time.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can get that much time. But you want even if you can walk half an hour to an hour.
I don't buy time, man. Anyone says I haven't got time, time is like the worst excuse you can give. I mean, unless you're, God forbid, you're disabled and you can't physically move. That's different, right? Then you haven't got the ability to do so. Everyone can make half an hour in their schedules every day. I just don't believe it. I have a very busy, hectic schedule, right? And I managed to find half an hour in my time to do some kind of physical activity. I think if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 40s and you're not doing a physical activity, I think you need to look at yourself in the mirror, A, and B, actually, in my case, don't look at yourself in the mirror, just demotivate you. But B, you just got to get out there, find a partner, right? Maybe find a buddy that you can walk with and make a difference with. I think that's different as well. I mean, if you could find somebody in the same position as you, it's actually a big deal, right? Brother T, like if you have somebody that you can actually share the activity with, that's also helpful, like having a fitness buddy sometimes.
Exactly. Right? And talking about busy, recently, our own brother Zafar, mashallah, he's been extremely busy, so busy that obviously sometimes I even try calling him for Inspire-related work, and he's really busy. But the thing is, he says he's got a fixed routine where he will go to pray Zohr at the local masjid. What he's done now, just as a routine, is to actually walk a different road. So he goes, that gets him in about 15 minutes walk. So he goes 15 minutes walk to the masjid, 15 minutes back.
Yeah.
That's half an hour done there. And he said, I will then make sure, regardless of what I do, as soon as I finish eating, and the other thing he's done is he's eating earlier to be able to go for a walk after eating.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's made a big difference. I used to always eat at 8 o'clock. By the time you eat, it is 8:30, sometimes 9. You don't want to go for a walk at 9 p.m. in the evening. So he said, now that I'm eating at 6:30, I'm always available to go for a walk.
That's massive, and that's really impressive. Anyway, listeners, what say you? 01582 481822. I want to go straight on to our next topic tonight. It's our last topic this evening. And don't forget, you can listen back to any part of tonight's program if you do want to listen to the topic that we talked about floods in the UK and what the councillor had to say, or Equi, the new think tank, or also all the great advice that Leo Nazar and Sister Jamila just gave on the best way to stay fit. All of that and this topic coming up is available on YouTube by going to YouTube, typing in Inspire FM Luton and clicking on the live tab. You can listen back to this program and many others as well. Lots of great content to listen back to on the line. Anyway, let me go on to our next topic, because I am delighted to talk about this topic because it's so important. Looking at my notes. It's such an important topic because we're asking the question, listeners, the best age to start a family. Is there a right time? And I'm delighted to welcome on this program once again a very special member of the community. He is Sheikh Nuruddin Rashid. He's been involved in Dawah and teaching the Islamic sciences for nearly 20 years, certainly a lot longer than I have. He's recently opened a new website called islamanswers.co.uk and is very active within the Ash-Shifa Trust in Banbury. He's also active within the Luton community, where he has been part of the Fountain of Institute Sacred Study program for a number of years, and hopefully we can benefit from a bit of that fountain right now. Sheikh Nuruddin, Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you see me and hear me okay?
MashaAllah, Sheikh. We can see you and hear you. I can see all those hundreds of books behind you, and I want to draw on some of that knowledge if we can, inshallah, because you know what, on Friday Night Live, Sheikh, you know this, is that we love talking about topics that affect people and that are relevant to everyday situations that we're in. And we're asking the question, as I mentioned in my intro, what's the best age to start a family? Is there a right time? And I'd love to draw on your personal experiences, the Islamic nasiha and advice that we can learn from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the pious predecessors. But let me start by asking you this, Sheikh, which is, from an Islamic perspective, is there a recommended or ideal age for starting a family, or does it depend on individual circumstances, and does it vary? Over to you, Sheikh.
Barakallahu feek, Allah most high bless you. I really need to update my bio, what you read at the beginning when I come.
All right,
I'm no longer with the Fountain Trust or Sacred Study, although I've just recently started a similar course myself. But in any case, yes, it's as you've said, it's, you know, it's circumstance, it's situation. There's nothing that obliges a person to, you know, have children at a particular age as opposed to a different age. Individuals are different, their circumstances are different. Many people, of course, they, you know, when they think about it, they think, well, maybe if I have children when I'm younger, I will have more energy and ability to take care of them. And others may be, well, perhaps it would be better to mature a little and to settle more in life and financially and such things. So this is left to the individuals. I suppose what I should raise is, certainly in the Hanafi madhab, when it comes to this issue, they said if either of the two spouses wants children, it is their haqq, it is their right, and therefore the other party should not deny it. I think that's a very important point to raise here. Of course,
the other party saying, and obviously I'm being flippant about this, but it's a serious point, which is we do need to give each other our rights, don't we? Especially when
exactly.
That's a really interesting point, Sheikh, because you know what, you mentioned that, but really, ideally, you don't want to be having this conversation once you're married, right? But you ideally want to kind of maybe clarify these issues before you even tie the knot. I mean, what say you on that? Because we're kind of jumping the gun, assuming people are married. But how many of us? I'm definitely sure you, Sheikh, are involved in lots of mediations between couples. I certainly am regularly. By the way, I'm pulled into mediations regularly. And one thing I always goes through my mind is, why on earth didn't you blooming clarify this stuff before you tied the knot? I mean, including the right time to have kids, right, Sheikh? Back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Allah Most High bless you and bless you for the work you do in mediation and such. Is very, very important. This is encouraged in the Holy Quran. You know, when the couple are unable to reconcile or work things out, that they should have hakaman min ahlihi wa hakaman min ahliha, a wise person from her side of the family, a wise person from his side of the family, as the Quran puts it. But as we see in the Sunnah, that, you know, it was sometimes other people in the community. It was often the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. So this is a great service. May Allah Most High bless you, reward you, and grant you tawfiq. But I'm so sorry, I forgotten your question now because I focused on that.
Yeah, do you know what, Sheikh? It's about clarifying expectations, including
before marriage. Yeah, absolutely. Because this is where we have to be a little bit careful, because, you know, the standard assumption is, well, everybody wants children. Of course they do. Well, why wouldn't they? And that's why I would say, yes, I agree, it should be brought up, because although it might be the minority of people who say, I don't really want children, or I don't want children until much later on in life, it's such a big issue and it can cause such big concerns within the relationship. I do agree. I do believe it should be brought up. And I have come across, as you said, you know, with mediation and such things, I'm involved in it quite often. And I have come across situations now and then where that becomes an issue. Sometimes, you know, you may have a situation where they did discuss it beforehand. I'm not saying this is a reason not to discuss it, but they did discuss it beforehand. And then later on, one of the two spouses changed their mind, didn't want children, now they do, or vice versa. That can, obviously, that can occur. You know, people change. But I still agree that having the conversation initially is very important. And
100%.
There are a number of things. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, I'm very sensitive to that because I'm a father of 3 girls, right? And I want to make sure that father of girls or boys, it doesn't make a difference, right? You want to make sure that you clarify these things. But we will do a topic, Sheikh, because I want to draw your knowledge on specifically starting a family and when the right time is to do that. But we will also do a topic on questions you should ask the other side, quote unquote, before you actually end up tying the knot and becoming married. Because I've had a couple of nieces, mashallah, get married just this last summer. You know, we've gone through the summer period. Lots of people got married. I had a couple of nieces in my family, but something was going through my head. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all our people who got married recently success in their marriages. But there are things that I think both sides need to do in order to set expectations with each other. And I always get concerned when me as a father and I see other fathers giving away their daughters without doing quote unquote due diligence. I mean, we do due diligence when we're about to buy a house, or we do due diligence when we're about to buy a car. Literally, isn't it, Sheikh? When you're going to go to a garage, you're going to buy a car, you're going to go around that car, look for dents, scratches. Oh my God, are the wheels okay? Is there, have these guys been over revving the engine? Blah blah blah. Is the oil level okay? But then, what about due diligence for your daughter or your son? Are you doing enough due diligence? Or are you just going to say yes and tie the knot to some random dude in the family who may not even have the right credentials or whatever it might be, or somebody outside the family, whatever it might be? I don't want to open up that can of worms, but Sheikh, that's an important topic as well, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. No doubt about it. And there's a lot of guidance in the Sunnah with regards to that as well. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, in a strong hadith in Tirmidhi said, if a person with whose religiosity and character you're pleased with asks for your lady, then marry him. Otherwise, there will be widespread corruption in the land. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are lots and lots of other things. But what we take from that hadith is these are two considerations: character and religious practice, and there are many other considerations as well, but that's an entire topic, as you've said.
Absolutely. And you know what, we need to get you live in the studio for a 1 hour special just on this topic, because I think we could do a lot of justice to this topic if we have people like you in the studio guiding us. But Sheikh, let me take you on to this next question. So assuming we have a Muslim couple and they consider starting a family, what factors from your experience should they consider, especially in today's fast-paced and career-driven world? A lot of people are focusing on their careers. We have traditionally women never used to work, but to pay the bill, sometimes the woman has to work as well. What's your advice to people who are deciding and thinking about starting a family? What factors should they consider?
Yeah, I mean, many, and as we both mentioned earlier, it does depend on them as a couple. But one of the things I try to encourage is, once you're married, take some time to get to know each other, get used to one another, spend some time with one another. Because the sad reality is sometimes people will get married and it's just from fairly early on, they know it's not working out. Now, obviously, that's not a reason to immediately dissolve the marriage, of course not. But the point is, if you're in a situation, I've come across this, where they are struggling, they're not getting on, there's a lot of rows and fighting and separation and such things. And then sometimes, there's a discussion of having a child in that circumstance. And ultimately, it's their decision. They can make istikhara, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. But practically speaking, I tend to say it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. You need to work on your own relationship as it stands before you consider bringing a child into the relationship, because although it's beautiful, it does also come with its own difficulties, hardships, and sometimes tensions, because one of the greatest causes of tension in a relationship can be different views and opinions with regards to how to raise the children, how to discipline the children, the activities that children get involved in. It's nowadays the diet as well. There's a lot of discussion, and that can really cause problems in a relationship too.
Yeah, subhanallah, that's a very, very pertinent point, Sheikh. Let me ask you this next question, which is, what advice would you give to couples who feel societal or family pressure to start a family at a certain age, but may not feel ready? One side may not feel ready, because if you think about it, Sheikh, I remember when we got married, I've been married, alhamdulillah, for over 20 years. But I remember my, counterparts, my peer group, my wife's peer group, also getting married around the same time and then having children. And we didn't have kids for a while. Not that we didn't want to have children. It's just that it wasn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will at the time. And there was a lot of pressure on, especially my wife, where all her friends were having children and she felt kind of left out. And I think women feel this sometimes more than men do. Could be vice versa as well.
Course, yeah.
What advice do you have there to couples who feel societal family pressure to start a family at a certain age, but they feel they may not be ready? And I don't know if being ready is the right question, because I don't think you're ever going to be ready to be a mum or dad, right? Nothing can prepare you for the challenges. In our case, what happens, we ended up having twins for our first birth, so we were definitely not ready for that.
I'm thinking I should leave because my experience and your experience is almost the same, mashallah. Almost, I bless you. Because I was married, alhamdulillah, for 20 years before I had my first child. So, once again, once again, it's similar to yourself. It's not like, we said, no, we don't want children. It's just from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. And personally, I never really felt it too much. Firstly, my family wasn't constantly saying to me, have children, have children, have children. Yeah, certain conversations would be had at times. And similarly with society, there was a constant discussion. Every now and then people would ask, oh, do you have children? Or how long you've been married? Every now and then. But I never really took it to heart. I never really let it concern me. Ultimately, I just focus on, look, this is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills it, it will occur. And if He subhanahu wa ta'ala does not will it, it's not going to occur. What's the purpose of, what's the benefit of worrying about it, concerning yourself with it? And my major focus with, as long as I'm fulfilling the rights of my spouse, that's most important. I'll be quite frank. I was indifferent, to be quite honest. It's not the case that I absolutely did not want children. It's not the case that I was desperate for children. I was indifferent. But, when your spouse wants children, and of course, you have to make sure you don't put any barriers in the way. So, my advice to people is don't worry about familial pressure or societal pressure. That's not, it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your spouse. As long as you're right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as you're doing right by your spouse, then, that's not something to worry about. And yes, if it is stressing either of the two out, that family keeps saying this, then it might be correct to have a quiet word. You say, if the husband's family keeps raising it, what's going on? Are you pregnant, etc., and it stresses the wife out, then maybe the husband should have a quiet word. Look, please, this is something she struggles with, or vice versa. It's the wife's family, because usually it comes back to mediation with couples and such things. This is often my advice. If there's a problem within the family, if it's from the girl's family, then the girl should speak to them. If it's the boy's family, it should speak to them, because there's less tension. They're more likely to accept it. But yes, the short answer is, don't focus on these things. Focus on doing right by your spouse and being right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and leave everything else in the hands of Allah Most High.
Mashallah, and that's a respectful thing, Sheikh, because dare I say that there are some brothers who get impatient and end up just divorcing their spouse. We're not having children, let's call it a day, when there's other options as well. I know, not all marriages are as simple as the fact that you can't have children, but there are other options as well, rather than just divorcing your spouse that may not be able to have a child. Actually, there are other options available as well today in modern science, things like that. You can measure things much more easily. But we'll talk about that again on another topic, Sheikh, because these are very complex topics, but really pertinent guidance. Last question for you, Sheikh, if I may, which is, in your experience, what spiritual or emotional preparations should couples make before deciding to have children, to ensure that they're prepared for the responsibility?
Yeah, with everything in Islam, we encourage people to study. Study, learn ahead of time, learn before you're involved in that situation. Even before the child, learn the rights and responsibilities of your spouse. Understand them. We've spoken about just one of them today. How many people were actually aware of that? If either of the two parties want children, you have to provide that. You cannot, prevent a person from having a child, although you can discuss it. So similarly with children, study ahead of time what's important. What are the sunnahs, for example, and the obligations when the child is born? What's the advice in Quran and Sunnah in terms of how to raise children correctly? What does Quran and Sunnah say with regards to discipline and such things? That's in terms of knowledge, which is of course, it's an intellectual activity, but I do strongly believe it's also a spiritual activity. Knowing and learning Quran and Sunnah will affect your soul as well as your mind. But as well as that, certainly make an abundance of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because anybody who has children knows that it is hard work. It's very hard work. And, you have to be patient, but also remind yourself that ultimately everything you do is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And irrespective of how tough things get and how many sacrifices you have to make, when you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it makes it a lot easier. And parents have to be incredibly patient. So work on patience. And so supplication is important. Reflection is very, very important, as well as, the standard religious activities that we do, praying and dhikr and such things. But the two things spiritually I would focus on most: reflection and supplication, dua.
MashaAllah. Well, on that note, Sheikh Nuruddin, it's always a pleasure to have you on this program, sharing your insights, experience, and knowledge. MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless you and your family as well. And and also allow you to come here to Luton live in the studio so we can talk about this topic and surrounding topics as well, inshallah, in the future.
Inshallah, no problem. We'll arrange ahead of time, and if it's an hour long, I can take out the time from my schedule and come, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Appreciate your time. Take care of yourself and have a wonderful weekend ahead, inshallah.
Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.
Listeners, this is Friday Night Live, mashallah, and that was Sheikh Nuruddin giving us his perspectives. Brother T, we've got a minute left. Your reflections on that topic?
No, I think it's an extremely important topic, mashallah, and you're right. We can't really do justice to it in the time that we had. But I think one really important point I think you mentioned right at the start was, as parents, to have that conversation with both parties, the husband and wife. And I think expectations are extremely important.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest reasons possibly for divorce is expectations which don't really work out. I was speaking to a brother and he was saying, I don't understand all these brothers who've got issues where wives are saying, you're not helping out. Because I sat my wife down clearly before we got married and I said, listen, I've never cooked in my life and I don't know how to cook, and I've got no intentions of learning. So I'm going to make that clear. Similarly, I don't expect you to work. I mean, from a husband perspective, financially, you will never have to do anything for that. But he goes, we had a clear conversation. I said, listen, I have no problems ironing. I'm very good at that. I like that. I help you with that. But washing up, I've never done it in my life. I will take the plate from he goes to the point where I'll say, I'll take the plate from the table to the
It's
sink.
very detailed.
I don't. So I think it's very, very important. He was saying to set those expectations. Why are you saying to your wife, yes, I will be sewing your clothes and I'll wash the dishes and I'll be master chef when you're not?
Yeah.
So I think it's very important expectations are set early.
Great example, Brother T. You know what, listeners, we've run out of tonight's program and the time for tonight's program, but we're going to be back next week. Let me go ahead and thank Brother T for filling in for Zafar Saab. Always a pleasure to have you around, Brother T, on this program, of course, on the radio as well. But listeners, this has been Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Brother T. Brother Zafar's back next week. But until then, take care of yourselves. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.